requires two things. We need to think out of the box. Over the years, everything that we have done has been laden with tribalism. It has failed to work. Look at where we are. And Mr. Speaker, I want to get your attention on this. Few years ago, and I know most of us were born after independence, once we got our independence, the Kenya that even the colonials had in mind and the Kenya that we have today are completely different. And that's why even the president and the government are struggling to put us back into where we are supposed to be. Look at this, Mr. Speaker. We used to have KMC. And I will always say this. In 1968, and I'm sure many of you were born after 1968, the GDP of the Republic of Kenya was the same as the one of South Korea. What has killed today? The GDP of South Korea, 50 times that of Kenya. Botswana borrowed from Kenya in 1968, including even the setting up of Kenya Meat Commission. Where are we today, Mr. Speaker? Today, Botswana provides meat to the entire world. Kenya Meat Commission is under receivership. What has taken us there? Tribalism, regionalism, corruption, nepotism, and everything else that we can attribute to this negative thinking that the Honorable Obaya was trying to introduce. I thought the Honorable Obaya, being a very progressive deputy majority leader, should tell us how we can get out of these perennial challenges in the name of tribalism, in the name of regionalism, so that Kenya joins the League of Developing Nations. Mr. Speaker, I want to say this. This bill, when I look at it, dealing with the formations of these regional boards is an administrative issue. And Mr. Speaker, I want to ask my colleagues here. Today you are a member of parliament. Tomorrow you will be an ordinary citizen. And therefore, as we do this, we should legislate for posterity, not having a particular issue, a particular season in mind. And that is why the collective thought of this particular group, I can see our SG of the Northern Kenya Parliamentary Group is a member of I'm told you are a member of this committee. And this is good. And these are the things that we need to address. We need to have the entity that deals with Northern Kenya, Wasanyuro, function efficiently, effectively, so that they have one of the best MDs. But because of structural challenges, that organization cannot work, Mr. Speaker. And this is some of the things that the bill attempts to cure. And I want to commend the committee. In conclusion, Mr. Speaker, there comes a time, as the late Professor George Saitoti says, had said, that the country is more important than individual thinking. We need to collectively put our thoughts together so that this Kenya that we have here, through our own little contributions, Mr. Speaker, joins the League of Developed Nations. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Joseph McClap.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to use the words of Senior Counsel Otiende Omolo that I generally support this bill. And to be able to fast track all of us, Mr. Speaker, is that, look, this is actually, this country has moved, Mr. Speaker, you can protect me from these people from one county. Mr. Speaker, protect us from these people, members of parliament, who are coming from one county, they are obstructing us, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, where have we come from? Mr. Speaker, there are people conversing in a language that is not parliamentary, and all of them four come from the same county.
Honorable Meli, Chairman Education. Order. Your discussion
They
is
all
too
come
loud.
from the same county. All of them four.
Okay, proceed.
And in the mother tongue. Mr. Speaker, I want to bring us to speed that why are we doing this and why it is necessary to do this amendment, this bill, Mr. Speaker. It's because in 1980s, this country tried to address specific inequalities that were affecting Kenyans in every region through what is called rural focus for rural development strategy. After that, Mr. Speaker, we moved to regional authorities, Mr. Speaker, in the 90s, establishment of regional authorities to be able to address the challenges that are facing Kenyans in specific regions of Kenya so that they are brought up for development, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, what then followed after all those ones, the focus for rural development in 1980s and the regional development authorities of 90s, now we entered into the Constitution of Kenya 2010. Those are the steps where we have come from. The Constitution of Kenya 2010 actually subdivided this country into 47 county governments that we have today. Again, why? That Kenya is a country with diverse people. And to be able to actually bring up Kenya in a manner that no government shall discriminate, then the establishments of the county governments so that they have equitable share of resources, Mr. Speaker. Then, what now missed is this bill. Because, Mr. Speaker, after now we've sorted out Kenya into 47 governments so that we can actually address, every regional government shall be able to address the things that are specific to them, then we did not touch the regional authorities because now there are functions that are county government, there are functions that are national government which are run by the regional authorities. Therefore, it is necessary, the bill sponsored by Honorable Peter Lochangabong is therefore necessary to realign the regional authorities with the new Kenya, the new order in Kenya, the establishments of county governments and the national government. Mr. Speaker, and that is why there is a fourth schedule, that there are things that are specific to be done by the county governments, and there are things that are specific for national government. This bill, therefore, tries to reorganize the regional authorities in a manner that shall conform to the Constitution of Kenya 2010. Mr. Speaker, why it is necessary to do these reforms, Mr. Speaker, some of these authorities have become obsolete in terms of performance because they are run by regional kingpins who have lost elections, Mr. Speaker, and breeding corruption in those particular institutions, Mr. Speaker. This is why this bill is necessary, because under this bill it will be able to sort very specific things that can be done by the county governments using the regional authority, and those things that can be done by us at the national government. And therefore, resources will follow functions, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we have one, for example, the Kerio Valley Development Authority. Mr. Speaker, the bigger vision of the Kerio Valley, for example, I'm just using an example where I belong, Mr. Speaker, was actually to bring up development in the Kerio Valley region to the level that are enjoyed by others. We lost the vision because there were so many other things that came up, Mr. Speaker, and we allowed the regional authorities to be run by our kinsmen in terms of management, board. And Mr. Speaker, I think going forward in Kenya, to avoid what the Deputy Leader of Majority was saying, appointment of board members must meet some specific academic qualifications so that we don't just appoint every Tom, Dick, and Harry to those particular institutions, Mr. Speaker. There are some professional things and technical knowledge that are required to run those institutions, Mr. Speaker. And I want to propose that as we even go through this bill, Mr. Speaker, Chairman, there is need now to synchronize and say the boards of a regional authority shall not have more than a third of the people in that particular region. Let's make Kenyans who are qualified, who have experience, who have technical knowledge, so that they don't converse in their mother tongue like my colleagues who are speaking here and share tenders and everything, and they bring down the authorities, Mr. Speaker. We need authorities that are able to change lives and bring development in the regions of Kenya in a manner that is enshrined in our Constitution, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, even the membership of the board, some boards, Mr. Speaker, are having 16 members. Others are having 9. There is need to put this House of Regional Authorities in order, not more than 7, for example, Mr. Speaker, so that you have a lean, manageable board. And even their secretariat must be people who are knowledgeable and qualified, and not specific from those particular regions, because if you want to finish an authority very fast, put people from the same region, all of them. They will crumble, and it will finish, and we shall have wasted taxpayers' money, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the regional authorities, the things we are talking about here, Mr. Speaker, receives exchequer from all Kenyans regardless of how they voted. It is revenue. It is what we do here. It is the division of revenue that we give to the county governments and the taxes that Kenyans are paying, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, we must nationalize our institutions so that they are able to be brought up in a manner that will be able to change Kenya. if we are interested in changing Kenya, Mr. Speaker, is whenever an institution is established, Mr. Speaker, let us accept that we must have the right persons in terms of qualifications, in terms of management and experience, so that we are able to bring up development to the rest of the country, Mr. Speaker. I'll give you an example, Mr. Speaker. Again, the Takwel hydropower, Mr. Speaker, was supposed to generate power, and the water that is remaining is supposed to be used for irrigation in the entire side of Turkana and West Pokot, Mr. Speaker. That is what will change Kenya. We need this country to become food secure. Kerio Valley alone, Mr. Speaker, has the capacity to produce food and sugarcane without using fertilizer that shall build this country, Mr. Speaker. So these regional authorities, I accept, Mr. Speaker, must be reformed. They must be reformed in accordance to this bill, and we shall even add some more amendments so that it actually sets up the entire country in a manner that brings everybody on board, Mr. Speaker, including the county governments. Mr. Speaker, even the county governments need a role. The county assemblies of Kenya need a role. So that now, Mr. Speaker, we mark these particular regional authorities with what the county governors have always struggled to establish, what is called economic blocks. Mr. Speaker, there is now need to realign economic blocks together with particular this bill so that we have entities that are economical, that are viable, that are able to generate revenues for our country, and even the auditing of these authorities, Mr. Speaker. Today we are dealing with a finance matter, and we realize there is some suckers in government, Mr. Speaker, who are actually receiving a lot of revenue, but they are not on the purview of the controller of budget, Mr. Speaker. And that is a recipe for corruption. That is revenue for cheap money, where people squander resources from Kenyans who have actually sweat to earn a living, Mr. Speaker. So this particular bill, Mr. Speaker, is a game changer in development of those areas that have always been prone to drought. Those are prone to floods. Those are prone to banditry. Those areas that are also growing. Those who are doing fishing, those who are doing sugarcane, we can be able to bring up the rest of the country to the level that we can say Kenya is a prosperous nation, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I support this bill with the necessary amendments, and we say, let us have a unified country, and let us reduce the number of suckers that are non-profitable, that are consuming taxpayers' money, so that we reduce and become economical, and we'll be able to change our country, Mr. Speaker. With that, I rise to support, Mr. Speaker.